following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood redefined. From Los Angeles, California, streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, the branded athlete, featuring in-depth interviews with and commentary on today's biggest and most successful athletes. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, the branded athlete.
Hey, what's up? It is the branded athlete. I'm excited you joined us. I'm your host, Kevin John. I'm joined alongside by my man, you know if you watch the show, my favorite debate partner and friend, Mr. Ben Bateman.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to be here. It's football season. There's football happening. We call this the branded athlete. We call it a sports variety show. But really, at the end of the day, Kevin, we're just here to talk about the NFL. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. We'll throw a couple other things in here, but I would call this the branded athlete football season.
I was about to say, there's no more exciting time to talk football than in September when it comes back. By the way, shout out to our producer, Alexis, that gave us some great intro music here. I think it's Eminem.
Sounds like Eminem to me. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Who needs Lose Yourself by Eminem when you have this song right here? It's just as intense and inspiring, and I want to go run a 40-yard dash right now.
Do you?
Well, I'll probably run about 8 seconds in it. But
What's your 40 time?
My fastest 40, Ben, was probably at the peak of my athletic career. I ran a 4.6-ish.
Okay.
And that was when I was a freshman in college. 4.6.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, what about you?
I probably couldn't even get anywhere near a 4.6. I'm an endurance guy. I'm not a speed guy. I'll go do like stadiums.
You do a mile?
And, I did today. I did stadiums today.
You did stadiums?
That's what I do. I don't do sprints.
Well,
I do
cool.
stairs.
Well, speaking of stadiums were definitely full this past weekend as we got back into the NFL. Pretty much every stadium was a sellout, except for a few. We won't talk about those, though. At any rate, as Ben said, obviously on this show, it's a sports show. But this time of the year, let's be real, America. Let's be real fans. We want to talk football. Maybe a little bit of baseball playoffs, a little bit of NBA offseason news. But really, I think football is dominating the news right now. Also, a real quick thing. As we've kind of said maybe last week, we're actually going through some transition and change here at our studio, which is something we're definitely excited about.
Oh, absolutely.
But with the change, we are actually relocating to a new studio not that far from here because we want to provide a better atmosphere, better ambiance, and better experience for you guys. So with that being said, we are actually taping this on a Wednesday. I know you're used to seeing us Friday, and you still will see us Friday because you're watching right now, but I just want to let you know this is taped Wednesday because they are doing some construction to the studio on Friday.
So it's like you guys are going to know more than we know about the Chiefs and the Broncos game that happens, which is tomorrow night. You'll be watching this, and that will have already happened. We can voice our predictions for that game, and then maybe on Friday when you watch this, you'll see if we're right or we're wrong. So that's exciting stuff. Really quickly, before we do get into the show, Kevin, I want to tell you about something I'm very excited about.
Blonde girls.
Well, I am excited about blonde girls. But on top of that, I have a question for you, Kevin. Do you like football?
Man, dude, I freaking love football.
Of course you like football.
Hell yeah.
Have you ever played fantasy football, Kevin?
Dude, I've never, can you believe it? Huge football fan, never played fantasy football.
Well, you are missing out, my friend. And I have something very specific to tell you about with fantasy football, and it's called DraftKings.
Wow, what is this?
It is weekly fantasy football. Now, DraftKings has awarded more millionaires. They have made more millionaires over the last several years than anybody else out there. Okay? All you do is you go to DraftKings.com, you sign up, you pick your roster of players every week. Don't like your team that week? Doesn't matter. Next week you get a brand new team. Depending on how those players fare, you'll get points, you score a lot of points, you win a bunch of money. Just sign up, watch your players perform, bring money home.
You're telling me that I can switch my team and players week after week. I'm not committed to the same player for the whole season.
Absolutely not.
Wow.
Yeah, Des Bryant gets injured, doesn't matter. He's not on your team next week.
Oh, Deshaun Jackson gets injured?
Doesn't matter.
Cam Chancellor doesn't come back?
This is DraftKings, Kevin. It's your way. This isn't fantasy as usual. So join in. The first prize in the Millionaire Maker event is $2 million. Second prize is $1 million, and it pays way down to the lower places. It's a whole lot of fun. I highly recommend it. It's something that I do. We have a special promo code. You'll get a free entry if you sign up with promo code BLACK. Go to DraftKings.com and sign up for it right now. That's DraftKings.com, DraftKings.com. Let's get into the show, Kevin. Oh, you know what? Actually, we didn't even mention something. We're missing Brittani Johnson.
We are.
The beautiful, beautiful Brittani Johnson, who could not make it tonight, unfortunately. And Brittani normally starts the show off with a random thought. And I'm going to step in for Brittani. I'm going to step in because I
Thank
did
you,
a little
Ben.
bit of...
Because you look like you can be Brittany. You got the cleavage going there. You know, got the smooth skin, so you're close enough.
So, Kevin, you may not know this, but
I don't know a lot of things.
my random fact of the week is that this week we had the number 1 and the number 2 overall draft pick face off in the NFL in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Jameis Winston out of Florida State.
Yeah.
And we had Marcus Mariota playing for the Tennessee Titans. He was the number 2 overall pick. Last year, those two teams ran fewer offensive plays than any two teams in football. Their offensive plays combined were less than any other teams in football last year.
Well, you know, you wonder if that's just a simple fact that they were always a 3 and out.
Yeah.
So their defense was really on the field the majority of the time.
Yeah,
because they were always a 3 and out. They never really got anything going offensively. I'm sure if you look at that same statistic, they probably accounted for the least amount of yards, least amount of offensive points scored.
Probably didn't do too well, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much everything in that category, which is not a shocker at all, but also very demoralizing for them. So
another one we can add in really quickly is we all watched James Jones catch 2 touchdowns this last Sunday with the Green Bay Packers.
Wait, are you hitting us with 2 random facts?
2, man.
Get it, Ben. Get it, Ben.
James Jones used to be a touchdown scorer, a standout, if you will, for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and he did not make the team last year. He was signed by the Raiders. He was okay for the Raiders. This preseason, he got cut. He was signed by the Giants, then he was cut. He was picked up after the injury to Jordy Nelson in the preseason, scored 2 touchdown passes on Sunday, and I'll tell you something. In his last 24 starts at quarterback, in games that Aaron Rodgers has finished, with James Jones on the field, James Jones has caught 20 touchdowns in those 24 games.
20 in 24 games.
20 in 24 games.
That's like an average of like almost 1 touchdown a game.
Almost.
You wonder if in that stretch of time, if any other receiver has caught more touchdown passes over that span.
The only guys that I could think of would be Dez Bryant and Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of touchdowns out of it. And to think that somebody who is that productive was on the couch is
Pretty
even
impressive.
more.
He knows the system. He walked in, 4 targets, all 4 of them, 2 of them touchdowns. Incredible. Let's get into the show.
Well, good, Ben. Thank you for those 2 random facts, man. Those facts are awesome.
I'll tell you something else awesome, Kevin. It's the segment we're about to do, and it's called What Would It Take? This is something we do every single week. This is a segment where we ask an outlandish question, guys, and the question is something that probably won't happen. In fact, it almost never will happen.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a question. So
absolutely.
We asked the question of what would it take to see this come to fruition. And today, the question is, in light of the 4 touchdown passes thrown by Marcus Mariota, in his 16 attempts, mind you, so he had a touchdown every 4 pass attempts, what would it take for Marcus Mariota to win MVP of the NFL in the 2015 season?
For him to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers every week. If he had that same thing every week, he would definitely, without...
Just spill water everywhere?
I just spilled water. That's what it is. And I really need this too. But man, look at my pages are just...
Sorry, man.
They're watered down, kind of like the Tampa Bay defense. But anyways.
We're solid professionals, Kevin. If you can do 2 things at once, you can talk to me about Mariota and clean up.
Exactly. It's called multitasking. Something that Winston didn't do a good job of. But at any rate, you know, I do want to say this. You know, obviously, you know, a lot of people were getting overly excited about Mariota's strong debut. You know, when the fact of the matter, when you look at it, he was 13 of 16, which is great. That's over 80%. So I think, I didn't look at his rating afterwards, but I would have to say it was probably near perfect, if not, you know.
I think it was 12 of 16, or I think it was 12. I feel like
maybe it was 12 of 16.
It was 13. It's close to it, though.
But yeah, so, you know, really, really good, very accurate. But at the end of the day, he only attempted 16 passes. And most quarterbacks on the first week, I haven't looked up the stat, but probably completed more passes the first week than he attempted.
Sam Radford threw the ball 52 times.
He did, but then again, you got to realize that's a very high up-tempo Chip Kelly offense where you're going to throw the ball a lot.
Rivers threw the ball like 46 times, I think.
That's because that's what Rivers does. You know, the great quarterbacks throw the ball a lot. Oh, Russell, he doesn't. But anyways, that's why I said the great quarterbacks throw it a lot. At any rate, moving back to what I was saying, what would it take? I know I joked around when I said it would take him playing Tampa Bay all 16 games in order for him to win Offensive MVP, but I think at the end of the day, what it would take is for him, like he had this past week, clearly on the same page as receivers, precision passing. I mean, there were some passes that he threw that looked like some Peyton Manning type. You know, there was a few seam routes he threw.
Yeah.
There was a couple down the middle that he threw. Actually, a few that were almost in traffic, but he put the ball perfectly.
Quick release too.
Quick, yeah.
Good footwork. Didn't get like hassled under pressure.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So basically, the combination of he would have to play a lot of lousy teams, and B, he would have to be on his best. I'm not saying, you know, that's not to take anything away from his performance that he played Tampa Bay, but I think if he continues to grow, and this is good because it'll give him a lot of confidence heading into next. So now, that he had the great game, he's probably thinking to himself, you know what, I can do this, and it's going to be a huge confidence booster. And you never know. I mean, what it can lead to. But what do you think?
Well, a couple things I noticed. So first of all, he didn't run at all, which is really interesting and kind of strange because Mariota is one of these guys who was heralded to come out of college as a mobile quarterback. Yeah. Not necessarily a mobile quarterback in the same sense that like a Michael Vick or some of these high draft picks that had that kind of athleticism were, but he was definitely a guy who was in the Chip Kelly offense, and people know that those quarterbacks usually in the NFL don't work out. So I think the fact that he didn't run at all was kind of a red flag for me in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean, it just made me stand up and take notice. He has a very fast release. I read a couple articles about him this week that were saying that his release compares favorably to Dan Marino's. He's going to get compared to a Hall of Famer, one of the 5 best quarterbacks of all time or so, as a rookie in your first game. I'd say it's pretty good. It's pretty high praise. So the thing I think about, if we're going to try to answer that question really, what would it take for him to win MVP in his rookie season? There's 2 guys you can think of recently that have both had absolutely magnificent rookie seasons. That's Cam Newton and Robert Griffin III. Neither one of those guys won MVP. Neither one of those guys at any point in time during their rookie season was really even in the conversation for MVP. And I think that has more to do with the fact that their teams weren't just crushing people, winning 12 games, blah, 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 blah. They were putting up pretty fantastic stats, but I think that there's a bias that most people are going to have against you as a rookie. So Mariota, in my mind, and empirical evidence shows that those are 2 of the most impressive performances by a rookie quarterback ever. In fact, they might be the most impressive 2 performances ever. So if we're looking at Marcus Mariota and we're saying, what's it going to take for this guy to win MVP? I mean, he honestly would probably have to throw for like 46 touchdowns or something like that. And
something absurd.
It would have to be like, actual MVP stats, the kind of stats that guys like Rodgers and Brady put up in seasons that they win MVP. 39 touchdowns against 6 interceptions, runs for 600 yards and 4 scores. The team wins 11 games and they make the playoffs. I mean, that's the kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say more to you is the team. I think more than his overall offensive performance, I think at the end of the day it's going to come down to 10 because even if he does throw 39 passes, 39 touchdown passes, 40 touchdown passes, 5 or 6 interceptions. If Tampa Bay at the end of the year is 3-13, he's not winning MVP. As we saw, Cam Newton threw for over 4,000 yards his rookie season, and even his first 2 games, he threw for 400 yards consecutively. Unprecedented when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. So even and I don't even know how many Cam ran for his rookie year, but I'm sure it was well over 500.
Like he got like 13 touchdowns rushing his rookie season too, didn't he?
Exactly. He broke a record rushing because I just can't remember this.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Cam had a phenomenal. Now how Carolina went 12-4 that season, I definitely would say he made a strong case for it. But I think at the end of the day, regardless, I think it has less to do with how offensively brilliant he is and more to do with how the team goes. Because think, if he does, say for example, he does just I don't want to say mediocre, but just say he does average. He throws for about 2,500 yards, throws for about 19 touchdowns to maybe, 7 interceptions. But just say something ridiculous that they go 13-3.
Yeah.
By all means necessary, he will definitely be a contender for it.
No, not at 19-7. Absolutely not.
Maybe I under exaggerated with that.
You would. I'm telling you, if we're really talking about what it would take, if the world really was going to crown Marcus Mariota the MVP of the NFL, I think your baseline statistics are 3,300 passing yards as long as you've got at least 500 rushing yards. So I'd say at least 3,800 all-purpose. You're going to need a minimum of 33 touchdowns and probably a maximum of 13 interceptions. And I think the team needs to win 11 games or more. If we actually saw Mariota put up 3,800 all-purpose with 37 all-purpose touchdowns against like 13 interceptions, and the team was first in their division, I think he could win MVP. But I think it's going to be minimum that. I don't think you can do it with less than that. If he throws 20 interceptions against it, I think it's incorrect. So
that's very true. Well, definitely see, that's a very good hypothetical question that you ask, and we'll see how it is. But definitely, to say the least, definitely very exciting to watch.
Absolutely.
And hopefully he continues to develop into one of the best. All right, now, speaking of, I guess, quarterbacks that were outstanding last season statistically, another quarterback who was outstanding last season was Tony Romo.
Fantastic.
They were, a lot of people talked about Romo, DeMarco, and Dez A lot of them, compared them to Aikman, Emmett, and Irvin. And when you had three just offensive weapons on your team, as we know, DeMarco Murray just crushed the competition with rushing yards. Des Bryant crushed the competition as far as receiving touchdowns went. I believe he led in. Oh, actually, no. Antonio Brown, I believe, led yards and receiving yards last season. But anyways, Des Bryant was up there.
A lot of touchdowns.
A lot of touchdowns. He led the league in touchdowns.
16 touchdowns, maybe.
Yeah. And Tony Romo was obviously outstanding. So that leads us into our next segment, which is the branded baller of the week, which you always have. And our branded baller of the week this week is the team that had the most exciting finish to, I would say, every game of the first week, all 16 games. I would say this game had the most exciting finish. The Cowboys versus the Giants. And our branded baller this week is the Dallas Cowboys. Now, even though they did win, that went down to literally the last few seconds. Unfortunately, they did lose their most productive receiver for 4 to 6 weeks tentatively.
Looking like it's probably more minimum of 8 at this point.
8, yeah. I know there's there's a lot more because he broke a bone in his ankle.
He has a Jones fracture, which for anybody wondering is the same. It's the same fracture that Kevin Durant suffered. And obviously, it's a little bit different. He's not 6'11", so or 6'11". I think Katie is 6'11".
He's 6'11". Yeah.
So it's a little different. It's a fracture of the 5th metatarsal, which is it's like the small bone on the side of your foot there.
Ben's in medical school right now.
Well, I play fantasy football. You get very familiar with these injuries, but it's a very painful injury, and it's not one you want to rush back because a re-break is extremely painful. So they're saying 4 to 6, and at the end of 6 weeks, it's possible he could actually regain football. He could join football activities at the end of 6. But realistically, if you want him to be a productive receiver on your team and you want to go deep in the playoffs, I think we're probably looking at Des Bryant coming back to the football field like week 9, week 10, something like that. So it's a huge blow for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, this week they actually traded the Raiders for Bryce Butler for a conditional draft pick.
Yeah.
And Butler had been a guy that was a 7th round draft pick for the Raiders. Showed very impressive speed at his pro day.
Mm-hmm. There are also a few other receivers they were looking at too that I was reading about to fill the depth. Can't think of any off the top of my head.
It was some journeymen they brought in to look at guys.
Some veterans I know they had brought in too.
Yeah,
maybe Reggie Wayne. That's a good, if he didn't officially retire yet, maybe that would be a very good potential place for him.
Well, they've still got Terrence Williams will be running as the 1 now, and you've got Cole Beasley coming out of the slot. You'll put Devin Street on the other side. And I think realistically it's now Butler is your depth. He's your 4th guy. Witten gets an uptick in targets, and probably Lance Dunbar as the receiving back. It's a little bit more work. But anyway, that aside, the Cowboys are definitely a team to focus on this week just because division game, they beat out the grit and grind with their rival. 2 fourth quarter touchdown drives, I think, in like the last 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Very impressive win.
My concern, though, with Dallas, and I know we're supposed to be, branded baller of the week is the person we're praising for the good, which, we're definitely praising the Cowboys for a job well done. And, I'll just go ahead and say our person who created our outline, and maybe a little biased because she's a huge Cowboys fan, Miss Brittani Johnson. But, another concern that I had, too, is the Cowboys running game. And, it seemed like McFadden shared a few of the duties.
Joseph Randall was the lead back.
But it doesn't seem like they're quite found their identity as far as the running game is concerned, which is going to be, I feel, a huge problem because that's something that really carried them offensively last year with DeMarco Murray. So I really feel once they secure that and some other things. So I don't know. I'm just looking at the team right now. Like, it was a great win, but it's going to be interesting from here,
The running game is very interesting, right? You have Joseph Randall, who's been one of these guys who's sort of a touted backup the last few years. Mm-hmm. You have Lance Dunbar, who's been a passing down specialist, who's always been like a little bit used. He was the 3rd guy. They traded for Christine Michael from the Seahawks, I want to say 2 weeks ago, for something like a 4th round draft pick maybe. And Michael out of Texas A&M was a 2nd round draft pick. He was explosive physically. I mean, he's definitely the most explosive of those 3 players. If he gets an opportunity and he can stay healthy, he might take over as the lead back by the end of the year.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a concern.
Absolutely.
I don't think that it's a great offensive line, but I don't really think it's plug and play. I mean, everything about that game was a little bit of a mirage. Lance Dunbar was the leading receiver in that game.
Yeah.
You don't want Lance Dunbar as your leading receiver. That's not where you want to be as the Cowboys. So I think the offensive line's great. I think Tony Romo's a stud. I like Terrence Williams as a 3rd-year player. Do I think that the Cowboys are going to continue to be the branded baller every week? No, I don't.
Shots fired, Brittani Johnson. Sorry, Alexis, I just shouted in her earphones there. But at any rate, obviously it definitely is going to be interesting. You talked about what would it take for Mariota to win MVP. I think, honestly, this is a season for Tony Romo to win MVP. And I'm going to say that for one of two things.
Yeah.
One, this is where he really gets a chance to prove himself, especially with Dez out.
Yeah.
DeMarco trade. Tony, can you take this team and make them playoff contenders pretty much the way Brady did it 2 years ago when he had no receivers and pretty much no back, and took them to the NFC Championship? I think this is really the year that Tony Romo can prove that he is an MVP caliber player if the Cowboys do a good job. So,
well, I mean, that's what great players do.
Exactly. Despite the adversity, they continue on. So, you said great players. Unfortunately, throughout the history of the NFL, not every player turns out to be great.
Yep.
You have some players that end up just, for lack of better words, just busting. All right? And this is another segment that we like to do. It's called Top 5. And this is where we do a top 5 of any prevalent subject, theme, player, top 5 of whatever. Top 5 players, top 5 teams. This week, in honor of the kickoff of the NFL, because pretty much this whole show has been NFL. Oh, by the way, the Dodgers did win tonight and are still first in the NL West and are poised to have home field advantage in the playoffs for you baseball fans. All right. So anyways, this week we're acknowledging top 5 NFL bust, and I think within any other professional sport, or the 4 major sports, NHL, MLB, NFL, NBA, for whatever reason, it seems like NFL busts are a little more highly publicized than bust in any other sport that there is.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's just because of the expectation. But anyways, so we're going to go through our top 5 NFL busts, and I just realized that all of mine are actually, no, I don't have all quarterbacks. Okay, good.
Well, I have an array in my head that I was going to go from, so we don't double up. I'll see if I go first, and I'm sure we probably both have some of the same ones.
We probably both have him on there.
He was on my list.
And I'll just say 2 that we probably both have, and then we can dive into that. Ryan Leaf, Jamarcus Russell.
Yes,
those are 2 that I have.
absolutely.
And then I'm going to just get those out of the way because I'm sure we both probably have. They're pretty much unanimous in any bust poll. Is Leaf and Russell. All right, now from here it gets interesting.
And anybody who's wondering about those 2 guys, Leaf's a little older, so if you're a younger fan, Ryan Leaf was a guy who was the contemporary of Peyton Manning in college. And the conversation at the time in the 2000 NFL draft
was who goes first.
The 1998 NFL draft was who was going to go first, Ryan Leaf or Peyton Manning. And in the end, Peyton Manning went 1, and Ryan Leaf went 2 to the Chargers, I believe.
Yeah, Chargers.
And within he was a comedy of errors, getting in fistfights, getting in trouble for drugs, eventually...
Currently incarcerated
for, I want to say, selling cough syrup or something. I can't even remember what it was
Stealing,
exactly.
too.
Definitely just a complete disaster. And then Jamarcus Russell was the number 1 overall pick, I think, in 2007 to the Raiders at the time when Lane Kiffin was the lead.
Well, that was Al Davis's last
draft?
The last draft before he started ailing. But Kiffin, I think that may have been right before Kiffin came.
Maybe Kiffin was the next year, but Russell basically just proceeded to balloon, get enormous. It was exposed that in this day and age, you don't take a running back in the top 10 or in the first round. It's usually just you don't do it anymore. It's like something people don't do. You take Trent Richardson third, and he comes in and he scores like 9 or 10 touchdowns for the Browns his rookie year. He looked pretty productive.
Decent,
800 or 900 yards. He was solid. Yeah. Everybody thought year 2, uptick, he's going to be better. I took Trent Richardson in a fantasy football draft the next season, his second season, with the 8th overall pick. That is ridiculous. He got traded week 2 to the Colts.
Yeah.
And proceeded to score a touchdown on his first game as a Colt. By the end of the season, he had plummeted. The next season, last year, he was like one of these bounce back candidates. And this year, he's not even on a football team. He got cut by the Raiders. When you get cut by the Raiders, the dream is over.
The dream is over. So, like you said, it may be premature to put him on this list, but it's very hard to, especially as a running back, because your life expectancy as a running back is only about 5 to 6 years in prime when teams want you. So, Trent, hopefully you can work things out. All right, go ahead.
We both had.
Oh yeah, that's right. We both had him.
Go ahead. I'll just keep following your lead.
My next one, actually, he came in the draft. I believe it was right after. I believe it was in the '99 draft, right after the '98 one we just talked about. Charles Rogers.
Yeah, the receiver for the Lions.
The receiver for the Lions.
Yeah, I think he was like 3rd or 5th, 4th overall. He was 2nd overall in '99.
2nd overall.
Jeez.
2nd overall pick. And that's what I think. That's another thing I want to say. In order, what qualifies you as an NFL bust? I think you're an NFL bust if you're drafted in the first round, at least in the top 5, and you don't play more than 3 years.
Yep.
That qualifies you as a bust. And Charles Rogers, we saw what he did in college. The man was just a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Just an absolute highlight reel. Came into the league
Okay, Couch was the guy.
He was a 99, yeah.
You have Kim Couch. You have Brian Bosworth is a huge bust. You have the Boz. There's actually 30 for 30 on him. Who was the guy? He played 1 year. He played 1 year of quarterback in college. He was right around the same time as Tim Couch. He might have been
Achilles Smith.
Achilles Smith. That's the one. I think he was third overall. He's super
I think he was
athletic.
Brady 6 too.
No, not Brady 6.
Okay, he wasn't.
But yeah,
okay.
around that same time.
But it was Achilles Smith. Actually, yeah, Achilles Smith. Yeah, and speaking of the Brady 6, there's actually a few in there that we could technically throw as bust.
Pennington was the highest pick, and he wasn't really a bust.
Oh, that's true. I was thinking the second round guy that went to the Niners, Italian dude.
Third round, Giovanni Carmasi.
Giovanni, because he was very high. But then third round, I don't know if you're technically a bust because there's not a lot expected.
In any case, I think that covers essentially a top 5.
Yeah.
And
real quick question from this draft, first round, who do you think will potentially end up being a bust?
This year's draft?
I mean, you had everyone: Melvin Gordon, Mari Cooper, Jameis Winston, Mariota.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was like anybody that came out that I was especially surprised.
Nelson Aguilar. Actually, I think he was second round, but
no, I think he was first.
Actually, he was first round. Yeah, Nelson Aguilar was.
Probably the guy that comes to mind for me as the first round pick that will be a bust. If I was really going to reach.
It's just, obviously we're stretching. We don't wish this. By the way, we're not wishing this on any players. But just.
It's probably Jameis.
Jameis, yeah.
He really didn't look like an NFL quarterback.
Absolutely.
And there's the eye test, and there's just, it happens. It's you're a rookie, it is what it is. But the eye test is like, it's just a way, it's like a look in their eyes.
Yeah.
Physical confidence.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to have it. And you worry when you see that, even if it is just one game. Sometimes you see enough.
Yeah.
So I'm not calling it out.
Exactly. We don't want to put that out there, but
the one, if I was going to have to guess, and it was going to be a high draft pick, I think it probably would be Jameis, which is really bizarre.
Well, hopefully 10 years from now, when we're doing a Branded Athlete, we talk about our top 5 drafts, bust of all time. Jameis, hopefully you're not on that list. But at any rate, the list we want you guys to continue to be on is the one of supporting Branded Athlete. So we're going to ask you guys to join us next week for a very special show. Very special show. You got to find out why it's so special when you tune in for it. I'm your host, Kevin John. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HeyKevinJohn. Ben Bate.
You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to check out the other Black Hollywood Live shows. There's a whole bunch of good ones. There's Fashion 411. There's Just Saying. There's The Beat. There's Next. Justice is Served. So a lot of great shows. They play on Fridays on BlackHollywoodLive.com, and as well as the YouTube channel, as well as a bunch of red carpets and cool things that we cover for them as well. So check that stuff out. Find us on iTunes. Rate the show. It helps us stay high in the ratings. Thank you guys for coming by, and we will see you next week.
Adios.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio, Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined. Go Niners.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.